for Hogan? What a joke and a half.
Why is that?
A guy called me up and told me he had a kid that looked great. The guy that called me up was Gary Hart. You know who Gary Hart is?
Yes, without a doubt.
Gary had worked for me, and Gary had been working in the business for years and years and years before me.
Do you consider him a good booker? Not to get off the subject, but...
I told you there's only one person that I think of that's worth a booking, and that was Vern and Eddie Graham.
Okay.
And Bill Watts.
Okay.
And after that, to me, there's no bookers. There's
Okay.
just people that put names down. That was it. What did he do? I don't know. But anyway, he called me up and he says, I got a hell of a kid down here. I said, can the guy wrestle? He said, boy, he looks good. I said, can he wrestle? He said, boy, that kid looks good. He's about 6'4" or 5. I said, can he wrestle? God damn it, Gary, shut the hell up. Can he wrestle? Boy, he looks good. I said, all right, send him to me. 1978, I think it was. And, the guy's name was Terry Bollea. Well, Terry Bollea showed up. Looked good. Big kid. I gave him a name. What's the name I gave him? Do you know? Sterling Golden.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
I do remember the name now.
Anyway, I gave him the name Sterling Golden. He thinks it was Barnett, but he didn't know nothing about anything anyway. And he worked for me for roughly 1 week. He was horrible. Horrible. Great big kid, no argument about that. But he couldn't do anything. And I really didn't want to take a lot of time trying to teach him how to do something, because I was trying to make money and not try to teach somebody. You know, I had enough trouble trying to teach somebody that already was working without trying to take somebody that just couldn't do a damn thing. Well, so he left me. I called up Vince McMahon, this one's father. I said, I got a hell of a kid down here. He said, yeah, what's he like? I said, he's a hell of a kid, looks good. He said, well, what's he like? Well, he's a hell of a kid, he's got a hell of a body. I did the same thing that Gary Hart did to me. But they liked it, and they took him. They used him for a while, and then they got rid of him, and they sent him to where? Do you know?
He went down to Memphis for a little bit, but then...
yeah, then where did he go?
Vern.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who taught him what little he knew? Vern Gagne. Vern was able to work in a town and not come back to that town for 4 or 5 or 6 weeks. In Georgia, we came back to town every week. That's why you couldn't do the same thing every week.
Right.
But Vern could work one town and then not be there for 6 months and work it again. So a guy that was a klutz could get by.
Right.
And he tried to help Terry Bollea become something more than a klutz. What he then did was sent him to Japan, just to get him out of Minneapolis.
For Inoki? For Inoki?
Probably, yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, I don't. It was Nokia Low at that time. I don't know if it was Baba or not. Well, what year would it have been? It had to be 1979, maybe. Anyway, whatever year it was, and I'm not even sure if that's correct. But then I think Vince got a hold of him in Japan. I think that's the way it went. And he promised him the world. So Vern had already figured he was coming back to Minnesota, and had planned on him coming back to Minnesota, but he didn't. He went to New York.
Right.
And they changed. Did they change the name before that, or did they change it at that time?
I think they changed it at the time. He came in as a heel, managed by Blassie, I think.
Okay.
Right.
Anyway, he came Hulk Hogan.
Right. Then he went back to Vern, and then he went back to Vince, I think, in '83.
Okay, yeah, okay. He was at Vern's with Hulk Hogan, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then he went to Japan, and then Vince took him. Yeah.
Right.
And here's what I say about Hulk Hogan. The only thing he knows how to do in wrestling is this. That's it.
Some people say, as far as wrestling ability, he has none. But do you consider him a good worker?
Well, what do you call a good worker? I mean, that's a hard thing to define.
Right. Exactly.
Does he draw money? Yeah, he drew some money.
Right.
So what else do I care?
Exactly.
But he was so limited in what he could do, in my opinion, that when you had a town that you had to run week after week after week after week after week, we ran Atlanta, 12 miles away, we ran Marietta. How long do you think that Hulk Hogan would last in Marietta and Atlanta?
He would have been exposed.
Then go 90 miles down to Macon, then go 80 miles down to Columbus. No, you got to have people that know what the hell they're doing. If you're up in New York, like old man McMahon called me years and years ago, he said, we just sold out Madison Square Garden. I said, how many people they hold? He said, 16,000 people. I said, well, that's pretty good. I said, but you know what? We just sold out the Omni. And it seats 16,000 people. I said, where are you going next week? He said, well, we don't run it next week. I said, how about the week after that? He said, well, we don't run it that way either. I said, well, when are you going to run New York again? He said, well, we'll come back in about 4 or 5 weeks. I said, well, that's the difference between New York and Atlanta. He said, what's that? I said, we run Atlanta every week. And we run Marietta every week.
Right.
That's 12 miles away. And we run Carrollton every week, and that's 55, 60 miles away. And he went, oh. I said, so you're drawing $16,000 to 16,000 people a month. That's good. I said, but we're drawing 16,000 people to the Omni once a month. Then we're drawing 10,000 people the other 3 weeks. So now we're looking at 48,000 people. Now you're looking at 3,000 people up in Marietta times 4.
Right.
That's 12,000 people. You're looking at 60,000 people in the city of Atlanta that go to matches every month. I said, but there's one big difference. What's that? I said, Atlanta's got a population of around 600,000 people. What's New York got? 7, 8 million?
All right.
He hung up.